Hi guys, Andrea here. I'm trying something new and different, and I'm a bit nervous about it, but I'm gonna go for it. So, I'm exploring the idea of interviewing folks and really sharing our individual stories on this journey with intermittent fasting and intuitive eating. And I thought I would start by sort of sharing my own story. So back in August of 2017, I started a really restrictive diet that was, I sort of had hit rock bottom on my personal struggles with food, and I was desperate to find peace, and so I committed to eating a particular way, and it involved like cutting out all flour of any sort and all sweeteners and sugars, and only eating at mealtime, and then also measuring my portions. So it was a really structured program, and I started that in August of 2017, and in January of 2018, I had lost a lot of weight and had really started to transition to maintenance and had achieved perhaps what I thought was going to be a goal weight, but I was still not at peace. And one day I decided to ask Google how I was going to know when I was at my ideal weight. Because, when you get to a certain goal weight, at least for me, when you get to a certain goal, when I got to that certain goal weight, I was thinking I should be at peace. Like, I know how to eat so that I can maintain my weight and everything should be just fine. But I was finding that I wasn't actually at peace at all. And if you hear background noise, it's because I'm sitting in my car recording. So, it happens to be raining right now. So I asked Google how to find my ideal weight, and came across a blog post that talked about how I was going to know that I was at my ideal weight when I wasn't afraid of any foods, and when I didn't have any food groups or foods cut out of my diet for, other than maybe some medical reasons, that I generally ate when I was hungry and stopped when I was full, that I didn't use food to cope with my emotions. And so all of those things, as I'm reading this blog post, all of those things were not necessarily true for me. The diet that I was following was basically the rules that I followed, and made it so that all of those other things, like, I couldn't honestly answer them in such a way that was going to lead me to peace. And so basically overnight, so I guess I had gotten to my goal weight in January, and then when I still didn't have peace in middle of March, that's when I started looking up sort of the direction I was going to need to head. And so in the middle of March, I completely changed directions. One of the, generally eating when you're hungry was one of the things that was in this blog post. And most days when I woke up, I was eating breakfast at like 6 o'clock, 6:15 every morning. And I wasn't necessarily hungry at that time. So for me to say I was eating when I was hungry actually was going to mean that I wasn't eating first thing in the morning. And so that I was already familiar with intermittent fasting because of my wife having started IF in January. And so I decided to give IF a try. And for me, since I was already at something that I would consider a goal weight, the challenge or the possibility for me really was in the fact that IF can help with other things, including stubborn fat, including allergies, helping with allergy symptoms, potentially helping with prevention of Alzheimer's. And so those were all things that sounded good to me. And it was just a matter of delaying when I was having breakfast because as part of my prior diet, I wasn't eating anything after dinner already. So the transition to IF was really very easy for me in that regard. It just meant I was waiting a little longer. And the other thing that was different for my transition to intermittent fasting was that I hadn't, for basically 6 months, I hadn't had any sugar or flour or any sort of sweetener. And so I think that I had already gone through sort of healing my insulin resistance, and the term that I've heard people talk about is that my body was already fat adapted. I don't know if that's true or not, but I didn't go through a rough transition to actually starting IF. And I think that the way I was eating before probably played a part in that. So I joined a Facebook support group for IF, but at the same time, I also joined some Facebook groups with regards to intuitive eating. And the thing that I found, like, intuitive eating of the intermittent fasting and intuitive eating realms, I think that intuitive eating is the harder one because it really requires that we break out of the habits that it really required me to break out of the habits that I had that led me to my disordered eating in the first place. And so I was looking for support in that realm. And so I found a bunch of, intuitive eating support groups, and it became very apparent to me very quickly that any talk whatsoever of intermittent fasting was not going to be allowed in those groups. I was told that I needed to take the conversations elsewhere, that I was still stuck in a diet mindset. It was just a very unsupportive environment for me, especially given the fact that I had come to the intermittent fasting approach based upon honoring my hunger, which is an intuitive eating principle. So honoring my hunger by not eating first thing in the morning. And then also that my goals for intermittent fasting were definitely not related to weight loss in any capacity. Like, if anything, I had accepted the fact that starting intuitive eating and intermittent fasting, there was a possibility that I was going to gain weight, because if my body had lost more weight than it really should have, like, gaining weight was a real possibility. And I struggled with that conceptually, but I knew that was an option and was committed to, sort of accepting that if it were to happen. So I was really struggling with reconciling the fact that I was, fasting for 16 hours, sometimes longer a day, but then also trying to practice intuitive eating, because there's a lot of folks for whom those two concepts just don't go together. And then in the intermittent fasting community that I was a part of, there just seemed to be a real focus on weight loss, and the success of folks was measured in pounds and inches, and there were people talking about some of the other benefits, but it often felt to me like they were happy about those other benefits, and the weight loss was still the ultimate goal. And I was really struggling with that as someone that was trying to let go of my focus on my weight. That was really hard to be around. So I finally got fed up with it and decided to start my own Facebook group, of which, if you're hearing this, you are officially a part of that community. I called the Facebook group Intuitively Intermittent, and it's I'm finding that there's a lot of people actually who think that intermittent fasting helps them to eat more intuitively. And I'm certainly finding that myself. And I'm really enjoying the process of exploring those concepts together. And, the group is just over 2 weeks old, and it's just blown me away with the interest, first of all, and then the community and the support that we're offering to each other just is really meaningful. And I've actually found a lot of peace, more peace anyway than what I had before, now that there's a space where I can talk about those two concepts, and that's, it's encouraged and accepted that these two things can actually go together. So the things that, to sort of shift the focus to the intuitive eating stuff for a minute, the thing that I'm finding the most success with right now is, in terms of intuitive eating, is in moving my body in ways that I find enjoyable. And so for me, that means that I'm not working out as a way of burning calories, or, to make sure that I work out so that I can have a big dinner or have dessert. That, for me, enjoyable movement includes, I've started doing some Pilates stuff, and I'm really finding a lot of joy in that. So for me, that's how that is manifesting itself. And if I'm not able to go on a particular night, it's not, I'm not beating up on myself for, having missed that. It's really a source of joy rather than an obligation or something that I feel like I have to do. So that's really good. The thing that I think I'm struggling most with right now is probably the honoring my hunger. And I say that because the structure of my prior diet was very clear cut. Like, you eat at mealtime and you don't eat if it's not mealtime. And so for me, that mealtime was breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and it was very clear cut. And so now with intuitive eating and also the intermittent fasting, I have a little bit more control over when I eat, and certainly how much I'm eating. And so the honoring my hunger, like when I'm at work, I will often find that I, feel like I'm hungry, but it's a way of coping with a challenging situation that I'm dealing with at work, or that I might be bored, or I might be procrastinating. And so I'm definitely one to eat for reasons other than physical hunger. I'll eat because it's time to eat, or I'll eat because there's food available, not necessarily because my body actually needs the food. And so that's where things get challenging for me. And then on top of it, like with fasting, I'm trying to fast for a certain number of hours to have the benefits of fasting. But if I get hungry before that, sometimes it's hard to know what the right answer is. Like, what should I do in that situation? Should I honor my hunger by eating, or is it possible that it's not actually hunger, that that I am just bored or whatever? And so really trying to figure out what hunger means to me, and what physical hunger feels like. I've found that to be challenging at times. So that's a little bit about my story and what I'm struggling with right now and where I'm feeling the most success. And I'm really interested in hearing what you guys think about this, besides the fact that I tend to ramble, and so this is possibly going to be longer than I would have expected. I am interested in finding out if you guys would have interest in me, interviewing some of you and sort of hearing your experiences with this process, and ways that you're struggling and ways that you're succeeding right now, and just using this as another tool to potentially build an amazing community. So let me know your thoughts, and I'm really looking forward to seeing what you guys think and where this might go. Take care. Have a great day. Thanks for listening to this introductory episode of the Intuitively Intermittent Podcast. If you enjoyed it and would like to participate in the conversation a bit more, check out my Facebook group. It's Intuitively Intermittent. And if you look that up on Facebook, you can request to join the private Facebook group. Just answer a few simple questions and we'll let you in and you can engage in the conversation. It's a really amazing community full of lots of support, and I really look forward to seeing you there.
The podcast you just heard was published with Anchor. Got something you want to say to the creator of this show? Send them a voice message using the Anchor app, free for iOS and Android.